I'm Josh McKelvin. A primary election for governor where all the Democratic candidates faced the challenge of name ID. Colin Van Ostern was able to mount a convincing win, but now we turn to the general election and more challenges for the executive counselor and the Democratic nominee for governor. Morning, good to see you.
Great to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We had a fun night on Tuesday and got to work right away on Wednesday, bringing together startup CEOs and business leaders down in Nashua with the mayor, talking about how to grow our economy.
Yeah, as soon as the results started coming in, you jumped right in the lead, never gave it up. Were you surprised how early a night it was for your campaign?
Well, we were glad that it was a decisive victory, and also that the other candidates running were both gracious in pledging their immediate support. There are only, 8 weeks to go, less now in this campaign. That's why we wanted to get started right away talking about big issues like growing jobs, overcoming the drug crisis. We had a roundtable with law enforcement and recovery counselors and those in recovery themselves the next day. That's the sort of thing this campaign's going to focus on every day.
You've been focused on the issues since you got into this race. You brought up the other candidates. All three of you, I mean, you did better than the other two did, but all three of you kind of struggled with name ID, which is understandable for a lot of candidates in this election cycle. Why were you able to kind of break through, do you think, and have such a convincing win when your policy positions are fairly similar?
Yeah, there were some differences, but I think that folks looked at my background. I've helped great New Hampshire companies grow, like Stonyfield Yogurt, Southern New Hampshire University, where I helped start a college that now has thousands of students, most getting a degree with no debt, called College for America. And some of the work I've done on the Executive Council, standing up for women's health, which we need to support Planned Parenthood funding 100% of the time. And I think that proved to be a convincing background and message. And what people really care about, I think, are the results that matter to their lives. Good schools, good jobs, low taxes, an efficient state government with less red tape. Those are the sorts of areas that I've been focused on essentially the governor's board of directors for the last 4 years.
You have two executive counselors who are now left standing, running for governor, and also being somewhat criticized to a certain degree. Dartmouth Hitchcock has had to deal with some layoffs. A lot of people pointing to the contract that was signed off on by the executive council. What's your take? What happened? Kind of give us your position on this.
Yeah, well, it was a bipartisan and unanimous vote to approve the contract, but it came after some delays, only after we were assured that there would be very specific requirements for staffing and qualifications. I'm glad that Dartmouth has reaffirmed after these disappointing layoffs that they will meet every single item within the contract specifications. I will hold them to that as an executive counselor, and if people choose me as their governor, we will not relax those standards by one position or one qualification or 1 year of experience simply because of the economic challenges and the layoffs that they're going through. What matters is patient care.
A number of people have said, well, you know what? Dartmouth Hitchcock wasn't as transparent as they needed to be leading up to this. While others say, you know what, there's warning signs here before the executive council signed off on this. Where do you fall? I think it's important that we ask them to ask the State Department of Health and Human Services to bid out the contract again. I was disappointed that they didn't. Frankly, I was disappointed no other business or nonprofit bid on the contract in the first place. That makes it more difficult. When I talk about cutting red tape in state government, one of the reasons that's important is because when you can do that, it means you'll have more folks bid. Competition brings better quality and lower prices. I've seen that in the private sector at places like Stonyfield, and we need to take that same model to our state government as well. Where do you go from here with this? Because obviously there's an open seat in the governor's office that you're running for. Governor Maggie Hassan, she's at the executive council table too, and she'll take her knocks for this as well. What is the next step?
Well, what matters most is not politics, is patient care. I think we need to make sure they are held to the letter of the law and the letter of the contract that they're legally obligated to do. And that's the most important thing to make sure patients get good care.
Okay, let's talk about your economic policy. A lot of it's built around a controversial, maybe not controversial. There's two camps on this, maybe more, who knows. Commuter rail. Why are you so convinced that this is going to be an engine that's really going to change the complexion of New Hampshire and bring more jobs and change the way the economy runs?
Well, it's not a silver bullet, but it's an important tool. The independent feasibility study shows that rail will help New Hampshire businesses grow 5,600 new jobs. As someone who has worked at great New Hampshire employers like Stonyfield here in Manchester on the Londonderry line, and who has helped grow a college where when I started there were about a dozen employees at Southern New Hampshire University's College for America, no paying students, important pilot project that was promising. We now have hundreds of employees there. Thousands of students have enrolled getting a degree without debt. And I can tell you one of our biggest challenges to growing, and this is true for businesses all across the state, is access to a great, talented, well-skilled, well-educated workforce. And that's why I'm so focused in this race on bringing more young people, young families, new businesses and startups. That's how we grow our state economy. And they need a state government that has no sales tax, no income tax, less red tape, more efficiency to help our private sector grow.
Yeah, but when you talk about the rail project itself, how do you get people to, other regions have gone through this and it's been
successfully. Look at the Seacoast. Right. Well, look at the Seacoast. It's the most successful new rail start in the country over the last decade or so. And some of our fastest growing cities like Dover, where the mayor has said, you guys would be crazy to not have rail in Nashua and Manchester. It's been great for growth in Dover, which is a growing city. There's no question that it will help businesses grow, help commercial real estate develop, and that it's a fiscally responsible project because most of the funding we can get from grants that we're just not asking for from Washington. Sometimes New Hampshire is penny wise and pound foolish, and I think we need to be more fiscally responsible in getting the best return on our tax dollars.
One more on this, and there are some success stories out there, but also you have your Austins and your Nashvilles that have struggled to make this work without taxpayer subsidies. Why are you convinced that this won't wind up being something that just comes out of the taxpayer pocket?
Well, even if you never set foot on a train, it'll mean less traffic on the Fort Everett Turnpike and I-93. I think we can all agree that that's good.
That's a good selling point.
But I don't think it's one or the other. I mean, there's a bridge being built in Keene right now that is coming in at $2 million for the project instead of $4 million, because I went there, I brought the head of the State Transportation Department, asked him to listen to local officials, and we found a more efficient project design. We can do more to invest in roads and bridges and do it in a more efficient way. There's a bridge in Concord that wasn't even going to be built this summer. It was going to be delayed a year because of red tape, and I brought the mayor and state officials together and we cut through red tape and got it back on track. That's the sort of leadership that'll drive our whole economy forward. It's not just one issue. It's how we invest in a stronger economy where everyone does well.
Let's talk about the opioid crisis, the crisis of addiction in New Hampshire. Actually, the federal level, President Obama really recognizing the situation, your administration putting out some new plans to combat this. Your opponent in this race, Chris Sununu, has said that there hasn't been leadership at the state and local level.
Yeah.
Criticism of his primary opponent, Ted Gatz, as it seemed, as well as Governor Maggie Hassan, who you support in this.
Yeah, I don't think finger pointing is going to get us anywhere. I think we need to focus on policies rather than talking points that will help us move forward. At the very beginning of this general election on Wednesday, I brought together law enforcement, treatment counselors, doctors, individuals in recovery themselves to talk about what we could do. There's a great nonprofit, a nonpartisan group called New Futures that's put together a 5-point plan about how we can overcome this. The first point is making the successful expansion of the New Hampshire Health Protection Plan a bipartisan law where thousands now have addiction treatment services, making it permanent. And this is a big difference between Chris and I. It took a lot of work from legislators to get done in the first place. It came to the Executive Council. There was a 3-2 vote. I voted yes. He voted no. I want to make it permanent. He wants to end it. That would mean a huge difference for what resources we have for overcoming the crisis. And that's the sort of specific issue that I think we should be talking about in this campaign. I'm proud to endorse their nonpartisan plan. I'm the only candidate for governor to do it. And I think it's the sort of thing we should have a real debate about.
And we're going to talk a lot more about this over the course of the next 52 days. I think we figured out the number was before we started taping about a minute ago. How do you make the case? How do you break through all the other noise that's out there right now? Because you're going to have a Senate race that's going to be tough to get some attention. You
know, people need a governor who's going to focus every day on good schools, good jobs, on low taxes, on good access to health care, whether it's overcoming the drug crisis or protecting women's health 100% of the time. I'm a dad, a business leader at great New Hampshire employers, and I've helped move the ball forward. A lot of this isn't about talking points, it's about results. There are thousands of people getting access to health care, in part because I helped fight to make sure that that happened. Thousands of students who are getting a debt-free college degree because I worked hard with a great team to help launch that college and do it successfully. I think folks will judge us on our results, and they want a governor who's going to focus on their lives, not focused on themselves.
Well, now you're running your own race. No more primary, general election. Best of luck to you moving forward, sir.
Thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
Good to see you.